I'm so pleased today to be joined on In Conversation by Gadeer Kamal-Mreeh. Gadeer is a former Knesset member and the CEO and founder of GKM Global Consulting. She's the first Druze woman elected to the Knesset, which is the Israeli parliament, where she championed minority inclusion and equality. She's a former senior representative of the Jewish Agency for Israel in Washington, where she strengthened Israeli-North American relations. She's a former journalist and the first non-Jewish woman to anchor a Hebrew language news broadcast in Israel. She's a member of the World Economic Forum and Munich Security Conference Young Leaders Committees. She's focused on geopolitics, public diplomacy, and cross-cultural leadership. She's a fascinating individual, and I think given the crazy times we're living in and what's going on in the world, you're going to get a lot out of listening to her perspective on how to communicate across boundaries. I hope you'll enjoy it. I did, and look forward to your feedback. Thank you for listening.
We stand today
a date which will live in infamy.
I have a dream.
Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall.
Ask not what your country can do for you. Ask what you can do for your country.
Gadeer, welcome to In Conversation, where we bring together leaders to talk about business, culture, the economy, and things going on in this rapidly changing world. You have such an interesting background. The first Druze woman to host the evening news in Israel in both Hebrew and Arabic. The first Druze woman to serve in the Knesset, the Israeli parliament. Maybe we can start here. What does it mean to be Druze? Not everybody's necessarily familiar with the Druze community in Israel. What does it mean to be Druze, and how has that shaped you and your outlook on the world?
Hello, Howard. At first, thank you for having me. I'm glad to be here with you.
It's very intimidating, by the way, to be hosting somebody who hosted the news in 2 languages on your podcast. But thrilled to have you here.
Thank you. So yes, I always introduce myself by saying I'm an Israeli, but not a Jew. I am an Arab, but not a Muslim. I am a minority within the Arab minority. My mother tongue is Arabic. My religion is Druze, and I am an Israeli U.S. resident based in Washington, D.C. And then, so you are a Jew. I said, no, I am a Druze. And then, what? Jews, Druze? And then D-R-U-Z-E, Google it. So the Druze people are a tiny minority globally, less than 1.5 million members, the majority in the Middle East, Israel, Jordan, Syria, and Lebanon. Amazing, fascinating region to live in. Very unique characteristics of that minority. And I always said that being an Israeli Druze, being a minority woman, based and operating and working here in the global perspective is fascinating. Mm-hmm. It is bringing your ability to see things from very mature prism, not narrow prism of any nationality, not solely that language or that ethnicity, but being or operating in multi-layered ecosystem to understand things in a very enriched way, because you are an Arab but Israeli, you are a minority, you are a woman. I am coming from a conservative patriarchal community, and I succeeded to break glass ceilings 4 times, which means I am challenging the system, I am challenging the society, and we are here to build a better world.
I mean, it's fascinating, and I'm just curious in terms of your service, your elected service in the Knesset, what was it like to walk into that kind of an environment, not being Jewish, being an ethnic minority? You were first elected in 2019.
That's right.
Obviously, it's been a very complicated last several years. What was that like?
Wow, so I believe it's related to the way you are educated. I remember the influence of my father as a major educator in my life. He always told me, you have no privilege to live your life and watch reality on your sofa. You have no privilege to do that. You must shape reality. I didn't understand, I have to admit then, what does that mean? But then I found myself at age 12 broadcasting my first live TV show in a local TV station. And then you see your path, your career, and your station and transition that, yes, you are a social agent and you must activate your power as a responsible citizen, regardless of the circumstances, by the way. He told me you have no privilege to live your life and care solely to your core system. The easiest thing is to take care of our children in our families. He said, okay, go beyond. Think how can you build your neighborhood, community, city, country, or the globe as a citizen of the globe. So today I found myself as a young global leader of the World Economic Forum, unique young leader. Last week I was recognized as the YAL, a young Arab leader by the UAE in 2026. So you find yourself operating beyond any layer and merging your power and your identity and serving different communities, the Druze, the Arabs, the Israeli, Middle East communities, Middle Eastern communities, and globe when we talk about climate change, when we talk about water security, when we talk about equality. When I served as the Israeli parliament, the Knesset, I said, okay, I have no privilege to choose my sector or to prioritize my electorate. The easiest thing to say, okay, I am a Druze, I'm going to serve the Druze, or to talk to the issues or to solve the challenges of the Druze, and you say, no, you must operate in the complexity of the ecosystem and to have the ability to maneuver. So I found myself in some days solving challenges of domestic issues related to the Druze, and the Arabs were carrying or they were facing issues that are totally different. Or you are visiting a Bedouin village and then a Jewish kibbutz and then a Druze village and then a Jewish city. The issues that an Ashkenazi Jewish man in Tel Aviv would face or care about are totally different than a Bedouin in the north or south of Israel. So I would say when we talk or discuss leadership, you must be able to see the whole picture. You must serve all layers of communities, both in the institutional level, individual level, administration, governments, public sector, private sector. You must be mature enough to see the whole picture of the ecosystem.
By the way, as you and I figured out, I've actually had lunch at an amazing restaurant in your village in Israel. So Israel's so complicated. Obviously, that's the understatement of the century. It's a multi-ethnic country with lots of dimensions. Obviously, it's a Jewish state. And the Druze serve in the Israeli military, right? And is that universally the case, or is it?
That's right. So the Druze is a very unique story. I would call it a success story of an integration of a minority that the state of Israel and the Druze people bilaterally are proud of. The fact that we draft into army in the highest percentage in Israel, 82% is the highest number, higher, by the way, than the number among the Jewish community, which is around 74% because of the ultra-Orthodox sector.
Right?
That's right. So we have no any territorial or national aspiration. It's not written in our faith that one day we seek to build our own statehood. That is why you are loyal to the country that you were born in. That is why Israeli Druze are loyal to Israel, Lebanese to Lebanon, Syrian to Syria, and Jordanian to Jordan, which is fascinating, and it is unlike other minorities. And it succeeded to build what we call it in Hebrew, Brit Damim, which we translated to Brit Chaim, which is covenant of life. That we are brothers with the Jewish people. We built the state of Israel together. Even the relationship started before the establishment of the state of Israel. So the story of the Druze and the Jews is considered to be very positive success story of integration of a minority within the state of Israel.
Is that changing at all? Is there tensions arise?
There is tension, by the way, even though when I was at the parliament, there are always challenges, but I would say it's typical challenges of any minority, that it succeeded even to overcome any other challenge, that it succeeded to survive and thrive. If you see the numbers now, we have so much database because we had 5 elections in 4 years. We broke global record in Israel, having the number of elections. So you have so much numbers of statistics of forms of voting voting. So the Druze Israelis is still voting to center-right. The sense of belonging of the Druze people in Israel is very strong. The fact that my mother tongue is Arabic, but it took me half a year, private lessons, in order to be able to broadcast in Arabic, in my mother tongue, because Howard, I think, and dream in Hebrew. When I deliver interviews these days in Arabic and Hebrew, I don't have to prepare myself because I think in Hebrew, but in Arabic, I need to translate the words from Hebrew to Arabic. So your identity is much more Israeli. Although by definition, you are an Arab because your mother tongue is Arabic. But you live in peace with all these components in your identity.
And how has that shaped you?
Wow.
And your view of, I mean, you do in your consulting business, you do geopolitical communications consulting, and that has to be integral to the way you look at issues, right? I mean,
that's right. Israelis in general are very creative.
Yeah.
Since kindergarten, you are educated not to do A, B, C, D. You do A, D, C, B. And it's creative in problem solving, which is one of the most trendy methods or requirements today in modern era that is reshaping itself every hour. So we are very creative. With some stakeholders, I engage as Gadeer, the Druze in Arabic. With some, I engage as DC-based, as a global young leader. With others in Hebrew as an Israeli. You solve problems in very creative way, and you engage differently, with some as a consultant, with some as a talent, with some as problem solver in the Middle East specifically. And the ability to maneuver, I believe, the fact that Israelis these days, or even historically, we are living under the survival mode. It is somehow that you have less time to rest. You always must adapt. You always must reinvent yourself. You always must survive and thrive. It allows you to bring new ideas, fresh concepts. My father always told me, as a businessman, if they close the door so you have windows, then don't accept no as an answer. So I believe the toughness of the Middle East as a tough region, as a crazy neighborhood. Look at the war these days.
Yep.
My husband, he's a high-tech person. I say, lucky you that you have same rules. Probably nothing is changing within a day. In my arena, I need to follow up every hour what is happening, because so much is happening in the Middle East these days.
So let's talk about what's happening.
We have to.
We have to. I mean, and by the way, this will go live in a week, and
Who
everything
knows?
may have changed. But sadly, whether one feels it's necessary or not, there's a war going on. And it's been going on. And in some ways, Israel's kind of perpetually in a state of war, certainly a state of readiness, a state of being on edge. But since the attacks
October 7th.
of October 7th, things have changed. And I think it's been a couple years of perpetual war. Where do you see the Iran conflict going? It seems like they're pretty intent on both sides at continuing to battle for the time being. Is there a way to bring it to a peaceful conclusion, or
It's hard to predict, but let us go to the 0 point. I would say that October 7th, as a tectonic development, I would say these days, if Sinwar, the architect, the leader of Hamas, the architect of October 7th, if he would predict or see that these are the ramifications of October 7th, I would say he would rethink about it.
Yeah.
Seeing the shifts in almost every country in the Middle East post-October 7th, it's fascinating, Howard.
Yep.
No government in Lebanon, no government in Syria, positive signals in different countries, negatives like in Turkey for an Israeli point of view, the Iraqi, the Muslim Brotherhood, Egypt, Iran, so much developments. I would tell you from an Israeli point of view, it seems like the grand finale. It is connected to October 7th. It is part of that series of attacks, wars, that.
Right.
The peak was last year when we were fighting actively, simultaneously in 7 fronts, which is unprecedented even globally, to have a tiny country reminding our audience, our viewers, listeners, that Israel is a tiny country.
The size of the state of New Jersey.
That's right.
Geographically.
That's right. In a hostile environment, like we can discuss it for hours. But Israel, since its establishment, it worked hard to be accepted as a Jewish/democratic state in the Middle East, and it is challenging. But seeing us as the state of Israel since October 7th, having this almost 3-year unprecedented war is changing the entire Middle East, and it's changing Israel. I would say Israel adopted since October 7th what is called the zero trust doctrine. Israel wouldn't allow anymore any enemy at any point, at any phase to thrive. Like we withdrew completely from Lebanon in 2000. What we got? We got Hezbollah with the 8th largest missile capabilities. It's not a tiny guerrilla gangsters beyond your border. They were threatening the whole Israel and covering the whole land of Israel. And you said you cannot allow them to be equipped, heavily funded by any player regionally. And you must finish the job, the slang in Israel, at any phase. Look what happened in Gaza. Israel withdrew completely, Howard, from Gaza in 2005. Completely. What we got? Hamas, terrible leadership with terrible priorities. Instead of investing and building Gaza, they were building Gaza underground for 17 years. And I always say political movements, they die, in quotes, to govern. So we got Sinwar. These days for Israel, it is to finish the job. It is to clean the region, to bring positive Sunni moderate players to the table. There are positive signals, like Syria, be careful with what you wish. Okay, Al-Julani, Al-Sharia, call him as you wish as a president. By the way, I don't know if you are following the developments in Syria. We had positive developments last year. Then we had campaign of terror against almost every minority which is not Muslim. Are you following the visual in recent days? Again, extremism, fundamental, radical players taking control. Who would say Al-Julani would survive? Maybe would be assassinated? Let's see. Lebanon, we thought that the government would eliminate Hezbollah. It was too little, too late, and then Israel intervened again. So it's very fluid, very dynamic, very complicated region. And that's why our work as young leaders to educate and re-educate stakeholders is challenging more than ever these days.
How's your family? Do you have family in Israel, of course? How are they doing?
They are tired. Israeli public opinion and public behavior is it's very tough. October 7th came to the Israelis when they were already tired. 23 was a challenging year for Israelis. They were discussing the system, the check and balances, the status of the Supreme Court, the identity of the state. Are we a Jewish state? Are we a democracy? And it came after 4 years of 5 elections. So they were already then exhausted. And then they entered the 3-year war, almost 3-year war that is reshaping the whole identity. And we are in a year of election, which is dramatically going to determine the face, the identity, the shape of Israel in the next years. Are we going to the right? Are we going to the left? Reminding our viewers, there is unprecedented polarization in Israel. Israelis are divided to right, left, Jews, Arabs, pro-Netanyahu, against Netanyahu. And we know historically what history taught us when you are dealing with polarized societies. It is dangerous.
Well, we know about that here. So, it's different, but
it's a global trend in politics that we don't know yet the results.
Right. No, I think that's fair. It's not, people think, the U.S. is so divided, and it is culturally divided, but it's the same thing in Europe. It's the same thing in Israel.
It's a new trendy global political trend to prefer nationalism rather than democratic values that we are still testing.
Yeah.
We don't know how public is going to react. Let's see in the next decades if it is another cycle or it's a new trend of consuming politics or creating politics.
Yeah, and it's hard to think about where you place what's going on with Iran in that context?
From a Western point of view, maybe.
Yeah, from a Western point of view, it's authoritarianism versus democracy, but that's way oversimplified. And I mean, at the end of the day, it seems to me it's about terrorism and military conflict and weaponry. It's not about, for us and Israel, it's about security. It's not about it's not ideological, really, in the sense of it's not Muslim versus Jews or Muslim versus Christians. It's not ideal. I don't think it's ideological in that sense. I think it's a matter of security.
I would say it's both.
Is it?
I would say it's both. And we are mature enough to see the multi-layered, complex ecosystem regionally and globally. When we discuss Iran specifically, but beyond, if we go back to the conflict, the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, which is now stable, let's say, our challenge is how are we going to engage and to influence policy making? You know, I really feel sorry for young generations or Gen Zs when they try to consume or to educate themselves. You know, the Israeli-Palestinian conflict is the oldest. It's the most complex conflict in the last century because it has two components. It's both territorial, it's also religious conflict. So I have two boys, 16 and 11. My 16 would go to Instagram. He would watch 15 seconds story on Instagram. Then he would go to X and read half a sentence by who knows.
Right.
And then he would go to Facebook and read an opinion written by who knows.
Right.
It's not anymore the classic media of trusted, verified, reliable sources of professional journalism, or anyone would open a camera, film, shoot, write, tweet, and who knows? So we need to redefine or reshape public opinion in already chaotic, flooded information era.
How do you do that?
So Yuval Noah Harari, I am sure you know him, the brilliant Jewish mind, the Israeli author, the historian, the futurist, the author of the bestsellers Homo Sapiens, 21 Challenges of the 21st Century, and the recent one was Nexus. He said that the major challenge is how are we going to consume data in the modern era? Who is saying what is disinformation? What is a fact, opinion, narrative?
Yeah.
I believe as a young leader, as someone who has been engaging in thousands of round tables, panels, conferences, under Chatham House rule debates, working with professionals, policymakers, and grassroots level, even students, I believe this is one of our major challenges because you are trying to reshape public opinion when the first one is shaped by sometimes very superficial level of knowledge. How can I educate you about the conflict in 1 minute visualized film? No, I cannot. You must dive into details, numbers, facts, dates, what happened, the peace process, the history of the region, the nuances of the conflict, and it is challenging.
Yeah. One thing that I've been thinking about a lot is your role. You were part of the Jewish Agency for Israel. You were an envoy here in the U.S., and you did that during the Israel-Gaza conflict.
That's right.
And that's happening at the same time that there are protests here, I think, centered around college campuses, but not exclusively, against Israel and U.S. support for Israel and corporate engagement in Israel. And how have you seen perceptions of Israel shift generationally? And how do we, when it comes to Israel, which is a uniquely, I think, polarizing subject, and I say that with some personal discomfort because I care greatly about it, but how do you think about shaping opinion and responding to that generational? It's real. I mean, it just, Mamdani just got elected mayor of New York. I mean, he's, the mayor of New York, but he's who he is, and he got elected mayor of the second most Jewish city on the face of the earth. How do you deal with that? And what have you seen, and how do you deal with it?
I believe I saw everything. I hope I saw everything.
Hopefully.
Imagine I was sent by the president in 21 here as the first non-Jewish senior envoy of the Jewish agency. We had positive signals then, optimism in the region. We had Abraham Accords. Suddenly Israel is accepted. Morocco,
Amazing.
Bahrain, Sudan, UAE, normalization.
Part of the reason it happened, by the way, arguably,
That's right. And then,
October 7th.
And then we had October 7th with the whole waves of anti-Semitism after we promised ourselves never again last century at the Holocaust, and it's happening again in this unprecedented waves of anti-Semitism. I had fascinating anecdotes when we talk about leadership, when we talk about the ability to shift or to reshape public opinion when you engage with diverse stakeholders. I am writing a book about my life. The peak, I believe, was when I spoke at an event in Dearborn as an Israeli representative, but in Arabic. And Howard, before I started, a woman stood up and said, okay, this is my first time to meet an Israeli, and my son told me, bring with you a gun because she's an Israeli, probably she's going to kill you. So this was my 0 point to prove that I am a sane, responsible human being seeking peace. One of the challenges that some communities, technically, physically, they don't engage. Mm-hmm. They don't know who is their neighbors. Mm-hmm. They see him as the other. With 0 chances to meet the other, to try to listen to the other, you probably cannot build peace or rebuild trust in this chaotic, typical environment post-war, specifically. Mm-hmm. One of the tools that we use also at the World Economic Forum is to bring the up-bottom atmosphere from a global perspective. I am not talking with you as a Druze, as an Israeli, as an Arab. I am talking with you as a human being. Let us frame the discussion. We are here to foster constructive dialogues and meaningful discussions about how to engage and how to stabilize the community, the society, the country. And when you come to these discussions, the issue is that sometimes we engage with mature stakeholders, with young leaders in Davos, in UAE, in Singapore, which is a challenge because then you need to translate it up bottom to the public opinion. And when you engage with public opinion, you need to build a safe environment to bring them to ask questions. Maybe now you are highlighting an issue that I didn't see it that way. Maybe I missed that issue or that angle of that discussion. Reminding ourselves any component of our identity, sexual identity, social, political identity, is part of so many components within. Mm-hmm. The fact that I hold the specific political identity is related to where I was born, which years, who are my parents, are they educated, are they rich, did I experience a war, did I travel abroad, where I studied. So I think what I think because so many experiences, accidents, terror attacks, peace process I was invested in, opportunities. Am I a privileged person? Am I suffering and poor enough and I have no time to discuss peace? Mm-hmm. So our political identity is a package. And as young leaders, when we engage, by the way, public sector, private sector, peace building, business, administration, government, today we are living in very hyper-connected world. That's why everyone is bringing his authentic know-how to the table to try to diversify the process. Mm-hmm. So we bring them to ask. We bring them to try to see the other and to highlight other perspective with framing, with awareness of the sensitivity and the complexity of the issues. Mm-hmm. It is challenging, but it is doable. And we are engaging with so many governments, with so many private sector players who didn't give up yet, who believe that we must work hard with any leader. I have the 3-2-1 role that I invented, which is I see society in 3 sectors. Someone who totally agree with me, it is nice to have, but my process is in other sectors. Mm-hmm. Someone who doesn't agree with me and he's fed by radical views that regardless how much effort, energy, time, education I would put, he wouldn't change his mind and he would hate me simply because I'm an Israeli. I don't either invest my power there. You work with what we call the confused. people who are mature enough and have the willingness to sit and to rebuild and to shape and to write and to engage. These are the sectors that we work with.
Yeah, I think part of the reason there's so much angst over higher education here in the U.S. is because, this is my personal view, but I think it's the view of a lot of, like, higher ed here went so far to one side. I should have it going this way. It went so far to the left philosophically that they lost their compass as far as presenting a broader worldview.
That's right.
And that's not a political comment. It's not a comment on the administration, but I do think that fostered this, it allowed this one-sided view of the conflict to emerge on college campuses during the conflict. But like it or not, it's an issue. I mean, the war is not popular here in the U.S. And the war has not helped. The view among Jews is that it's not helped anti-Semitism. It's inflaming it. What do we do about that? I mean, you're an inside, outside kind of perspective on this. What do we do?
Which is crucial, and I believe any organization, regardless public or private sector, that seeks to survive and thrive in modern era must be able to diversify the know-how and bring people from different ethnicities to the table to enrich the ability of bringing the input and digesting reality. Yeah. I would give you an anecdote. Last month, amazing projects, no problem of money. People are enthusiastic to rebuild the region, to invest in peace building. And in the campaign building process, they want to go to two-state solution. And I say, hold your horses. Yeah. It's obvious to me as a Middle East-born Israeli citizen to tell you, it sounds like a naive idealism. Okay, understand that here is your goal, but we are here with zero trust. Both nations are traumatized, chaos. You want to reach here, but let us do it step by step. Howard, they didn't understand what I was talking about. For me, it's obvious. And it would decide if the campaign or the project would fail or succeed. But this is an anecdote of the ability to see the whole or to the macro perspective. And we go back to the multi-layered systems that you would operate organically as a local, and then you zoom out as a young global leader. And you do the cultural exchange, the know-how exchange. What worked in Syria that didn't work in Turkey? What is working these days in Israel that is less working in UAE? The ability to maneuver up, bottom up is crucial. The ability to bring different people, different colors, nationalities, religions, languages, nuances, heritage, stories to the table, it's crucial. I think here we need to invest much more in bringing people to dive into details. By the way, it's a challenge for everyone, regardless of the topic, regardless of the Palestinian-Israeli topic or Israel or US, it's beyond. It is about how people are consuming data. We had the social media, now it is the old player. We have AI now. My children are using every tool of AI to support them in studying. By the way, do we know where are we going to? The first time that I heard about ChatGPT and the definitions and the goals of ChatGPT was in Davos at the WEF in 2023. Then we were trying to define AI. How can you regulate? You need to define first AI, why AI is here and where we are heading to. By the way, as you know, we are witnessing history. In the future, books are going to talk about 25, 24, 23, that it's a revolution. And we are witnessing the intensity, the rapidity, the dramatic way.
Are you talking about technologically?
About AI.
Yeah, okay.
So when we try to solve or to shape or to reshape public opinion, we need to go back how public is consuming data. How are we consuming news? If now CNN has TikTok account, if now Prime Minister Netanyahu has TikTok account frying eggs to reach or to target his electorate, his voters, his younger voters. So it's evolving, it's changing, and you must always adapt and think creatively how to engage and how to target each sector.
So again, you are this cross-cultural, very interesting person that's done very interesting things. How do you do that?
I would take you back with me to recent decades. Like, let us talk about diplomacy. Okay, diplomacy last century, it was very classic, very old-fashioned. One ambassador is talking to another ambassadors, and this is actually the way nations are communicating. In recent years, we have a new trend in our life, what is called track to diplomacy, public diplomacy, giving the hand, the control to public to talk, to negotiate, to do the cultural exchange. This is what we are doing. And we even developed a new layer of public diplomacy, thematic public diplomacy. Okay, this is what you need. You need to target professionals. You need to work with young women. You need to talk with leaders. You need to solve global climate challenges. Let us bring the power to the public to engage with each other. And this is exactly what we are doing. We give the power to public. By the way, it's not perfect because look at the world these days. Any citizen would be a journalist. Any citizen would act as a diplomat, would take photos from the scene, live, broadcasting and bringing the war from his own authentic way of or view. And who said that this is reliable, trusted voice, knowing the history, the ramifications, the decision-making? Is he real or is he a bot?
Yeah. Yeah, it's hard to tell. And I mean, that's what, going back several years, that's what led to the Arab Spring, right? It was information traveling over social media, and that makes a lot of sense. But are you saying relationships don't matter anymore?
The opposite. I would say we need to walk in, let's say, a parallel reversed path. Yes, we have AI, modernization, globalization, hyper-connected world, but let us simultaneously also invest heavily in the people-to-people talks. Yes, AI is amazing, but AI cannot sense yet.
Yeah.
AI has no intuition. Intuition is not a primitive tool. We have our intuition relying on so much knowledge here. Subconscious history,
creativity,
collective knowledge.
Right.
So parallel path of investing more in people-to-people talks. Look what happened post-COVID era or during COVID. We went to remote, we went to viral, we went to online meetings, and then we realized, no, we must do the in-person gathering. We must do the, what I call it, the 4DX, like a movie in theater. I need to sense you. I need to see you. I need to see the whole picture. I need to read the room. I need to see the body language, the nuances, the tone. And it allows you to be much more productive in your friendship, in your work, in your community, in your government.
So there is still room for relationship-based traditional diplomacy, even in this data-driven public world in which all this knowledge is in the hands of so many people.
I cite so much time. At some point in 23, I realized that even among this prestigious community of young global leaders at the WEF, some of them, they even didn't visit Israel.
And you're talking about the World Economic Forum.
That's right.
Which you've referenced a number of times.
So I'm a young global leader of the World Economic Forum. It's a prestigious community of the A-list of young leaders of every country. And then I realized that some of them, they didn't know what's happening in the region because simply they were not visiting or they didn't visit Israel. Mm-hmm. And then I decided to lead a delegation to Israel. I picked 15 young leaders from 15 different nationalities. And I saw when at some point a Syrian-born young leader from Netherlands was standing, crying, delivering a very authentic monologue in the Golan Heights in Israel about, oh, so this is Israel that in my first grade our teacher were cursing, and this is the Zionist enemy, and wow, it's an amazing country. And then I decided to take them to Hebron to see the conflict, and then to a settlement to interact with Palestinians, with Jews, with Arabs, to talk with them, to engage with them. In one of the leadership seminars at Harvard, one title I remember, You See, You Believe. I want them to see Israel, to see the conflict, to meet Circassians, Bedouins, Druze, Christians, Jews, and to engage with us to build trust between nations. So we still engage with people-to-people talks. We still believe in people-to-people talks.
So I've referenced several times the polarization here in the United States, where you now live. It's significant. And there's a significant cultural divide. And I can't even say it's Republicans and Democrats necessarily, but there's a major cultural divide in the United States. Is that insurmountable? How can we, as somebody who is from a region that's dealing with perpetual cultural divide, where there has been some success in, you mentioned the Abraham Accords, there has been success in bridging differences. Israel's been at peace with Egypt and Jordan for a very long time now. And then the UAE and Morocco and other, I mean, they have been able to bridge some of the most challenging divides in the history of the universe.
That's right.
Can we handle our issues here at home, and how? How do we bridge the rural to the urban, the various cultural divides that exist in the US?
It's fascinating issue that I believe any leader, nation, community leader, any religious leader, even mayors these days are thinking, how can we engage in that process? We would go back to two simple facts, that the world is evolving dramatically, rapidly. The intensity of the knowledge, the change of how we are consuming data is fascinating. And the political trends these days are fascinating, moving rapidly. I would say education. It would sound naive, but education is the key. Education is the tool to bring us to much more in-depth reading of reality. And when I say education, by leaders, by administrations, specifically in Israel, in Jerusalem, when I served as a member of parliament, I was fascinated that there were so many members of parliaments with this shorts and reels and social media, visual campaigns without understanding what we are voting, what we are doing, and how to serve your public in your committees. And it's globally, by the way, regardless of Israel. Mm-hmm. So to bring back the leaders and the communities, the citizens, to in-depth reading of reality, I believe this is the challenge. Mm-hmm. To solve any conflict or any division or any polarization. Are we heading there? I am not sure. We are heading to very superficial, colorful, simple storytelling of reality. You should have that too, but you cannot allow yourself to abandon the in-depth. You don't have to be a political expert to understand the Middle East from 2 centuries, okay? But you must pass the minimal education of knowing what's happening. You asked me about October 7th. I engaged with hundreds and thousands of stakeholders, even with students here in the US. Guess what, Howard? Some of them, they didn't know where Israel exists on the map. And they were sure that they know what they are talking about. Excuse me. Go educate yourself. Mm-hmm. Go educate yourself as a leader, as a citizen, as a professional. I believe this is the challenge that we are heading to, or we need to solve. AI is making our life very simple, very easy. Right. Answers in seconds. Is that good?
It can be. But
we need to regulate that.
Right, you need to go deeper.
Okay, and where are the limits?
So back to that episode you mentioned in Dearborn. What happened there?
Wow.
Did you succeed in educating?
In reshaping. You feel, you read the room in the follow-up one-on-one discussions. When they lined up, wanted to ask more, you understand that there was a room or the vacuum that was created of zero engagement is bad, that you must engage. If the 0 point is hereby, I probably would be killed by you as an Israeli, and then you say, So there are good faces of Israelis, there are good people of Israel that want to build peace with us.
Yeah.
I would say that you would see the positive signals immediately. And we have no privilege to give up at universities, campuses, municipalities, even Manhattan, even New York. I am following the developments. I have so many people that they have so much to say. One rule, you have no privilege to give up. Regardless of what you think, as long as you are not fed or believe in in-depth rooted thoughts, in fundamental radical extremism, I have the willingness and the right to talk to you and to try to build something with you.
So is it surmountable? Can we overcome our differences here? How do you think about the U.S. circa 2026?
Wow. Culturally, politically, socially, we can discuss it for hours.
Politically, which I think means culturally, because I think our politics have become tribal. They become more about culture than about policy.
Okay.
That's my view. The party, take MAGA and progressives. There's plenty they agree on. They're both populist to a degree. Take an issue like trade in China. There's not as much daylight as, even among the two extremes, there's not as much daylight as it seems, but it's more like I'm this and you're that, and never the two shall meet, and we can't really talk to one another, and you can't understand me and I can't understand you. That's not based on policy. It's not based on the subject. It's just based on you're you and I'm me, and we
go back to public opinion. When I led 3 campaigns in the national level, and my campaign manager told me, okay, where is my office? I said, guess what? No office. We are here. Right. I said, what? I said, yes, we are here. And it's, by the way, it's about US, it's about Israel, it's about Middle East, it's about Iran, it's about China, it's about everything. The policy, public. Politics, society. Media, engagement. There are so many layers here that are reshaping our reality. It's a very general question, because when you say U.S. politics, is it solely U.S. politics domestically? Is it Republican versus Democratic, or the U.S. foreign policy or Middle East? Is it solely seeing that from a pure U.S. interest, or the global role of the superpower? Is it still a superpower? Is it going to lead the next century? Where is China? Where is the Middle East? It's not, the war with Iran is not Israel versus Iran, as you know, as everyone knows.
Nor is Ukraine about
That's right.
Russia and Ukraine.
That's right. So there are so many, I believe, questions rather than answers that we need here to discuss. We would enjoy it as sophisticated social agents, but it's beyond red versus blue.
Right.
In Israel, it's beyond pro-Prime Minister Netanyahu against. It's beyond Jews, Arabs. It's beyond Iran. It's very dynamic, evolving reality with hyper-connectivity. You have your private firm. These days, you would be affected / influenced by any decision would be taken here or in the Middle East much more rapidly than in the past. We are living not in interconnected, we are living in hyper-connected world.
Yeah.
That is why these days governments are bringing professionals, external advisors to bring the know-how from the private sector, and the opposite. As a private sector, you bring the ex or former government policymakers to bring the know-how from public, because these days there are less limits.
Yeah.
There are less borders, both between nations or countries, and also between sectors. Third sector to second sector, first sector, government. And I believe we need, if we seek to survive, to adopt new forms of thinking every day.
Yeah.
And to challenge our own perceptions every day. It's very general to ask about Israeli politics or Iranian politics or China's politics because we are today and this vodcast would be broadcasted in a week. Who knows what would happen in a week? Ceasefire, permanent solution, Iran next or Lebanon next. And that would affect every stakeholder, relevant stakeholder within days.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. I mean, things move at the speed of light and they do here, they do everywhere. And
they were happening in the past, but they were not transmitted in that rapidity. If there is an earthquake now in Japan, probably me and you would know that in 30 seconds.
Right.
And it would affect how are we going to react if we have relevant stakeholders in Japan.
Sure.
In the past, we didn't know in real time. It would take hours versus days to know to prepare.
So we have to adapt and figure out this, to the extent it can be figured out, this rapidly evolving world in order to figure out how to bring people
That's right. And to
together
be brave enough as leaders, regardless of what you are leading, to challenge your own perceptions and to diversify your methods.
So let's close on this. You're this global public leader. You've had such an amazing career. Who do you look up to from a leadership point of view? Who are some of the role models you
Authentic leaders.
think about?
Authentic leaders.
Yeah.
I think we need more authentic leaders, leaders who are brave enough to be authentic, without filters, without sterile studios. What we are doing these days, which is trendy, to have the ability to lead discussions with interesting figures, to bring the real you. I miss leaders who brought themselves, that they were guided by the right values.
Yeah.
By the way, when you are a leader, I would see it horizontally. I would call it the tree of values. Because probably when you are a leader, you must lead your mindset, your soul, your mind, your body, your family, your neighborhood, your community, your city, and your globe. Probably you wouldn't see a terrible father, a great global leader. When you are guided by the right values, you enter the role of leadership from the right motive. So it's both. It's having the charisma, the luck, but the authenticity.
Yeah, authenticity is everything. And I think it's why this kind of a format is compelling, because we're sitting down and we're having a conversation. We could just as easily be sitting having lunch at Balos, which we did recently. It's conversational. It's direct. It's not talking points. It's not filtered.
That's right.
So it's channeling some of that and taking it to a place where people understand what's going on around the world.
It's very accessible. It allows people to reflect or to understand from our own knowledge, from our stories, from our own maybe struggles, failures, lessons. I love it, and I believe we need to empower more authentic leaders to lead the globe.
It's so challenging because the things that are positives, like our ability to sit down and have this podcast, which is new media, a new way of communicating, the things that are opportunities and positives are also the things that are negatives.
That's
you consume content that you want to consume. So it's that the algorithm's feeding us what we already believe. It's extremely complicated, and this has been a fascinating discussion at a fascinating time, a sad time, a challenging time, but also a fascinating time. And in some ways, I'm going to say a hopeful time, in the sense that they're dealing with some of these existential threats that we're facing in the world. And let's hope, as we head through the year, that things settle down and we do find ourselves in a place of peace. And I think, somebody like yourself with the ability to talk across cultures and across boundaries has an important role to play in this world. So thank you for bringing some of your perspective to In Conversation, and looking forward to continuing the dialogue.
Thank you very much. I appreciate the opportunity. I would finish with 2 sentences. Researchers found that people would remember just 17% of what we discussed. I hope that they will remember much more, but I am led by 2 sentences. The first one is, don't talk about them, talk with them. So thank you for bringing the awareness of who are the Druze people, what's happening in Israel, the Middle East. So thank you for that. So don't talk about them, talk with them. And the second one that my father always told me, remember when the people lead, leaders follow. So we have great power, first as people, before being any leader, to lead our communities to a better place and to leave the world one day with a better world.
A hopeful note to end on. Gadeer, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for joining us for this edition of In Conversation. If you enjoyed it, the best way to support the podcast is to leave a review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to your podcasts. New episodes are released on Monday at 6 a.m. Eastern Time. For more information on Cozen O'Connor Public Strategies, please visit our website at copublicstrategies.com and follow us on social media.